So I get a lot of comments on my videos from people who like watching invasions and PvP on YouTube and Twitch, and they want to try it themselves, but they're either intimidated or they try it once, they get totally stomped by some 3v1 dead level gank squad, and they just put the controller down and walk away frustrated, thinking, there's no way that I'm ever going to be good at this. The good news is that I am willing to bet 75% of your problems, why you feel like you suck at invasions, is because of your build. About 25% is a skill issue. You do need to get good, and that only comes with practice. But there are a ton of people who think that they can just take a build that they used in PvE or co-op into invasions and start dominating, and that is simply not the case. Good invaders make builds with very different priorities than PvEers and co-opers, and they are a lot more efficient with their stats. So, this video is going to be in two parts. In the first part, I'm going to walk you through step by step how to make a build from scratch that is designed from the ground up for invasions. I'm going to explain to you the choices that I'm making and why I'm making them, and kind of in general the things that you need to consider and prioritize when you're making an invasion build. And then in part two, we're going to take this build into a couple of low-level invasions, and I'm just going to walk you through some very beginner-level tips and strategies for the kind of situations that you're commonly going to find yourself in when you invade. The long and short of it is, though, you get better at invasions by invading. You don't get better by watching streams or YouTube videos or reading wikis. This video is going to help you get a build off the ground, a build that has a lot of flexibility, going to give you some small competitive advantages in invasions, but you have to get out there and try it for yourself if you want to improve. So, with that in mind, let's get started. We are going to start with the Vagabond class because it has the highest vigor of all the starting classes, and it has kind of an even spread on some stats that we're going to want in the future, like strength, dexterity, endurance, and faith. This is going to be a physical damage build, so if you like sorcery or incantations, sorry, you're going to learn the way of the blade. You're going to study the blade in this video. Take the lands between rune for some extra cash, spend it on a crafting kit and some cracked pots at Kale's. Go get Torrent, and then we are going to get our primary weapon for this build, which is the Lord Sworn Straight Sword. The Straight Sword is a really good weapon for invaders. It is not flashy, but it teaches you things like spacing, mix-up, roll catches, and you can slap pretty much any Ash of War you want on it. Farm the soldiers at the gate front for one. It shouldn't take too long. I got it on like my second attempt or something like that. The Vagabond comes with a long sword, but that sword is shorter and it does less damage than the Lord Sworn, so I would highly recommend just farming for a couple of minutes and grab the Wet Blade while you're here as well. Now let's pause for a second and talk about our checklist for this character. Our priorities are going to be 40 vigor, plus 7 weapons, and as many sacred tears and golden seeds as we can grab without going too far out of our way. The game considers your rune level and your weapon level when you're matchmaking, but it does not take into account how many flasks you have or how strong your flasks are, and your flask charges get cut in half when you invade, so you want to pump those numbers up as much as possible, again, without going too far out of our way. There's tons of golden seeds and crystal tears that you can grab without fighting any bosses or enemies, but we have kind of a route in mind that we're doing, so we're not going to like go all the way up to Altus or something just for a golden seed. Along with that, there are a few incantations that we want to get as well, including Bestial Vitality, O Flame, Flame Cleanse Me, and Flame Grant Me Strength. This is not going to be like a Faith incantation build, but with a really minimal investment into Faith, we have access to some really strong incantations, so we might as well use them. What you're about to see here is like the most efficient route that I could think of off the top of my head to get all this online, and from start to finish it took about 2 hours to get everything that I wanted. But I was also streaming and talking to people, and I'm sure somebody out there could route it faster and make it more efficient. But all things considered, 2 hours is not much of a time investment for a character that is going to be competitive at low-level invasions, and it's also going to be pretty strong for early game PvE as well. So, after you get the Straight Sword, your first stop is going to be the Limgrave Tunnel. There are 8 Smithing Stone ones in here, and you don't have to fight a single enemy, so just run around, pick those up, and we can jumpstart our weapon upgrades. Next, you're going to want to grab a gold pickled fowl foot, which we're going to use in a second. There's a really convenient one on this hill next to the main road in Limgrave. After that, we're going to take a little detour to the Weeping Peninsula to pick up the flail, a golden seed, a memory stone, and 2 crystal tears. I also went ahead and grabbed the Eclipse Crest heater shield from this body here because it looks cooler than the starter one that the Vagabond gets. And finally, the merchant at the very end of the peninsula sells smithing stone 2s, and since I had enough cash on hand, I went ahead and bought those 2. Next, we gotta pay a visit to the great Kenneth Height, and he generously donates another golden seed to the cause before we visit the Third Church of America for another crystal tear and our flask. Then, after a quick visit to Fort Height for the golden seed there, it's time to get 40 vigor. So, go through the portal, behind the third church, grab Gerank's Grace, because we're going to need it later, get the golden seed on the road going south, and take it all the way to Grail in front of Fort Feroth. We're going to be killing Grail with the flail because it has natural bleed buildup, and the golden foulfoot is going to push that rune farm up to about 90,000 runes for only a couple of minutes of work. Now, let's pause here for a second. Why am I prioritizing so much health so early on in my build? It's simple. In most invasions, you will be outnumbered. You're going to be fighting 2 or even 3 opponents who can hit you all at the same time, and there is no friendly fire. They can really just gang up on you. You're going to get hit, and you're going to get hit a lot. 40 Vigor gives you almost 1500 HP, which is enough to tank a few hits from even like some of the nastiest builds that you're going to be running into at this level. And on top of that, it's going to give you more HP than your average host or co-opper has around level 40, which is kind of a nice advantage to have. So after Grail is put down, go ahead and visit the Plague Church just south of you to say hi to Millicent and grab another crystal tear before warping back to the gatefront. From here, go north to Stormhill Shack, grab another golden seed along the way before turning east and visiting Bernal. Bernal sells a lot of useful Ashes of War, so we're just going to go ahead and pick up Spinning Slash and Stormblade with our remaining runes. Those are 2 really good choices for a straight sword. From there, continue east until you hit the death-touched Catacombs, defeat the Black Knife inside for a Death Root. We need 3 Death Root to give to Gerank for the Clawmark Seal, which is a low faith requirement seal that scales with strength, and Bestial Vitality. This incantation heals you over time for 600 HP, which is almost half our current health pool. Vitality is really good for invasions because it lets you heal without using your flask charges, and it lets you use downtime and passive hosts to your advantage. So, after the Catacombs, continue east to Summonwater Village and kill the Mariner there for your second Death Root. Now it's time to visit Leria, so take the back route past Stormvale and make sure to grab this cookbook here so that you can make Staunching Boluses. Staunching Boluses eliminate bleed buildup, so you can probably guess why we're going to want those on an invasion build. Go ahead and grab the Sacred Tear from the Church of Irith before heading to this cave at the base of the cliff. Defeat the Cleanrot Knight at the bottom for the Winged Sword Insignia, which is a really good talisman for physical damage builds that gives you a damage buff for repeated attacks. Afterwards, visit these ruins on the eastern side of the lake for the Two Fingers Talisman. We're going to set our faith to 11, which is just a 2-point investment, and with this talisman, that gives us 16 faith, which is enough to cast all the incantations we want. Next, grab the Fire Monk prayer book from this Fire Monk camp over here, which has O Flame in it, before heading towards Raya Lucaria for the golden seed that's in that little sunken town area. Grab the crystal key from behind the dragon and the memory stone from the tower on the west side before going inside the legacy dungeon. We're not really going to be doing anything inside Raya Lucaria aside from grabbing this golden seed here and then teleporting north to visit this church on the Bellum Highway for the crystal tear here. Run through the crystal tunnel, grabbing every smithing stone you can find because we're going to need a bunch to upgrade our sword and our seal, and then kill the Crystallian at the end for the smithing stone bell-bearing 1, which you can give to the twin maiden husks to make them stock infinite smithing stone 1s and 2s. After you do that, go to the eastern side of Liurnia and kill the Mariner here for our third Death Root, and make a quick stop by this Fire Monk camp for the Flame Cleanse Me incantation. This incantation eliminates Scarlet Rot and Poison, and every other person that you invade is going to be using the Rot Breath incantation or the Ant Spur Rapier, so this is pretty much required on every invasion build, at least for me. Now we can get our seal and some of our incantations, so go ahead and warp back to Garank and feed him some breakfast for the Clawmark seal and Bestial Vitality. The final incantation that we need to pick up from the open world is located here in Caelid at this fort. You don't have to fight anybody, just run between these two flame chariots and grab Flame Grant Me Strength. It's a damage buff that increases physical and fire damage, and it's really great for pretty much any early game invader that's focusing on physical or fire damage. Alright, go ahead and go back to Stormhill Shack and check out where Roderica was sitting. If you leave and go to Liurnia and then come back, she goes to the Round Table Hold and she leaves a golden seed for you. How nice. Upgrade your sword to +7 and go ahead and fight Margit, who should be a total joke and super easy with how our build is set up now. Run through Stormvale, grab one last golden seed, which brings our flask total to 9 charges and 6 crystal tears. Stomp all over Godric, who again, with this build is super easy, and use the runes to finish up the build. Remember, we want 40 Vigor, 11 Faith, and 15 Endurance at level 40. If you have leftover money, which you should if you followed this guide, go ahead and buy enough smithing stones to get your seal up to +7 as well. If you didn't spend money on anything except what I've listed here in the video so far, you should break pretty much even and not really need to farm anything at all for more runes. The last thing we need to do is Vare's quest for the Bloody Finger, which is an item, it's reusable, it lets you invade an infinite number of times. Talk to him here at the Rose Church in Liurnia. He gives you some consumable Bloody Fingers to invade. Go ahead and use all of those, doesn't matter if you win or lose, and then talk to him again to get this item, the Lord of Blood's Favor. The quickest way to finish up this quest is just to go kill Irina here. Just keep in mind that if you do kill her, you're locked out of Hyetta's questline, which is really not a big deal unless you want the Frenzy Flame seal for your build. And there we go. The build is finished and ready for low-level invasions. So let's do a quick review of why this build is going to be so helpful for first-time invaders. First off, we have a really large health pool thanks to that 40 Vigor to help us tank attacks and stay alive even when we're outnumbered. The Lord Sworn Straight Sword is a really good beginner weapon. I still put it on almost every single build for its versatility and its speed. It's going to teach you a lot about spacing, poise damage, mix-ups. In general, it just serves as a solid weapon for any build. And with just 2 points into Faith, we have access to 4 incredible incantations. Bestial Vitality for that recover HP over time. Flame Cleanse Me can mitigate the threat of Scarlet Rot. Flame Grant Me Strength is a cheap and really effective damage buff. And O Flame can hit through shields and gives us a really nice chargeable elemental damage option. We even have a couple of different Ashes of War to experiment with to see which one we like best and in what situations they really shine. Now, if you're willing to put just a little bit more time into this build, there are some quality of life things that you can pick up in Altus, like the second smithing stone bell bearing and a cookbook that teaches you how to make warming stones, which are another HP over time recovery item. And finally, you can purchase an Ash of War called Carrion Retaliation from a merchant named Pydia, who is accessible after the Loretta boss fight in Caria Manor. This goes on your shield, it functions as a normal parry and a spell parry, so incoming spells turn into little glint blades that you can attack your opponents with. These things aren't strictly necessary to start invasions, although I would recommend them as the next steps for the build, along with going up to Volcano Manor and grabbing the Recusant Finger, so you can just kind of spam the invade buttons without having to wait too much on the timer. So, all that is left to do is take this build into a few invasions and see how well it works. So just like I said at the beginning, let's take this build into a couple of invasions, and I'm just going to sort of walk you through my thought process while I'm in these invasions and why I'm making the choices that I'm making. So first one, we are in Caelid, we're invading a duo. And you'll notice there's one person who's swapping between a couple of pretty high-level weapons. They've got that spear, and they've also got that hammer that you get from Radagon. So right away you can kind of tell that, like, this isn't just a random person that the host summoned, probably. Because we're invading anywhere from, like, you know, level high 30s up to level 60 probably with this build. And at level 60, most people are not going to have beaten the game and have, Marika's hammer. So this guy is probably a friend of his that he summoned with a password. And this guy is probably a much higher level than me, actually. Now, that's not really a problem because when you invade, hosts and, their co-opers get scaled to your level. So they're not going to be doing like the true level of damage that they would normally be doing. Their HP is going to be a little bit reduced. Their damage that they're doing is going to be a little bit reduced to make it a little bit more fair. But those are still nasty weapons, and the host has a Bloodhound Fang as well. You need to learn how to respect other people's builds and their damage when you're an invasion. And one of the best skills that you can learn as an invader and learn it early on actually has nothing to do with mechanics or, dodge rolling or, learning the moveset of your weapon. Really, it's just about making a quick assessment of your opponents. So what weapons do they have? What sort of options do they have? What kind of damage are they dealing, and how are you going to deal with that as an invader? These are decisions that you need to make, like split-second decisions kind of on the fly. So currently, you'll notice that I've done a couple of things so far in this invasion. I already popped our Bestial Vitality to give me a little bit of that healing over time, because I could tell kind of as soon as I spawned in with this invasion that this was going to be a bit of a drawn-out fight. I wasn't going to be able to close this up super quick, but I also thought, I can probably lead these hosts around a little bit. I can waste their time a little bit, I can take them on a journey and heal while that is happening. So that's why we have this clip sped up a little bit, and you'll see I'm just sitting here. They don't really want to engage because they're summoning another co-opper, and that gives me a chance to recover a big chunk of my health, which is really helpful because I currently do not have any flasks left. There were a couple of points in that fight when we were sort of with the Kindred of Rot that I could have maybe closed the gap a little bit. The host was really low on health. Stormblade, like you saw, does a lot of damage early on, and you can use it to catch people who are running away, but, just didn't really quite time it right. And so now we have this situation where I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens. I'm waiting to see what sort of co-opper they summoned, what this person is doing. And you'll notice at the top of the screen on the compass, there's a little golden symbol. When you are in an invasion, that symbol always points towards the host. So if you go in that direction, you're going to find the host. And when you get close enough to the host, the symbol disappears. So just a really helpful thing to know. They're kind of taking this back route because they don't want to aggro that dragon. And so now, I tried to do a cheeky little wave on them, and I got punished for that. Don't try and be cute. I try and be cute sometimes in these invasions, but just don't do it, right? Doesn't usually work out well. But we can see that this other co-opper that they summoned also kind of has a mean build, right? They've got a katana, and they're doing more lightning magic, right? So this is a person who's got long-range options. They've got a weapon up close that can do, like, bleed damage, I think. So definitely something that I need to respect and take seriously, especially because I don't have any flasks left. However, that changes right here because one of the co-oppers dies. They go in to fight that Banished Knight, and that is a pretty tough enemy, and if you don't respect it, it can definitely kill you. And when a co-opper dies, you get flasks back. So you get a blue and a red flask back, one of each if a co-opper dies to an enemy or if you kill one of them. And that kind of turns this whole fight around because I am able to get back up to full health, and I am able to get all of my FP back. So now I have more health. I can use my incantations that I've got on this build. So now this might be a little bit more of a fair fight, especially if the host doesn't want to engage me, right? Some hosts just, they send their co-oppers after the invaders and they say, go take care of this guy for me, and they don't want to turn it into a 2-on-1. The host charges at me a little bit here. It's interesting because he's kind of being aggressive, and that Bloodhound Fang is sort of a scary weapon. But he backs off once his co-opper shows up and just says, hey, take care of this guy for me. So now we've actually got a one-on-one fight. I'm at about half health, but I feel pretty confident that this is somebody who I could take in a one-on-one situation. That's something that you just kind of have to determine for yourself, and you get a feel for it when you do more invasions. Like what kind of what kind of builds are you capable of taking on your own? So he's got the Meteoric Ore Katana. I think that's what it's called. It has this really cool Ash of War that draws people in, and I believe it does some magic damage as well. So I'm kind of trying to feel out right now, like, what are this guy's weaknesses, right? What does he do? Does he mash R1? Does he really just love to use that Ash of War over and over again? I pop my Bestial Vitality here one more time. He definitely could have killed me here, right? Just with a couple of fan daggers or something like that. But he gave me a chance to recover a little bit of my health, so now we're just sort of playing the keep away game. And Invasions, like another really helpful thing to learn early on in Invasions is patience. You need to be patient if you're going to be an invader, especially in Elden Ring, because the zones that you invade are so huge, people can just run away from you. They can go summon more friends, they can try and back you into a corner. If you are too aggressive or if you're impatient, you will get yourself into some pretty bad situations. Right, I'm more than willing to just kind of hang out by this dragon, use Bestial Vitality to recover a little bit more of my HP, and wait to see what happens, because he has walked into the sort of the range where he's aggroed the dragon. It was either him or the host who did that. So now the dragon is active, right? He's kind of looking around, and I might be able to use that to my advantage. The host is trying to hit me with like bleed arrows here. If you just kind of strafe, right? If you just sort of walk around, you can get people to waste a lot of supplies and a lot of FP as well if they're just spamming spells or consumables or arrows at you or something like that. But I'm ready to try and close this fight out. So because I see that he's summoning another cooperator, probably the guy who died. So it's time to try and figure out how to do this. And I noticed that the co-opper is fat rolling now. So that to me says, oh, I can roll catch this guy, right? I can just hit him with a couple of R1s, a couple of R2s, and roll catch him. And then the dragon kills me. So you never know what's going to happen, right? This was like an 11, 12-minute invasion, and I was pretty excited thinking that I could close things out, but I wasn't paying attention to kind of like the level hazards around me. Still a really good fight, really fun fight between everybody who was there. And that's what you're looking for, right? Like, I just want to have a good time when I do invasions. So here's another example where I can show you kind of some of the basics of invading. We have a duo here again, one guy who's using spells and one guy who's got the great sword. So ideally, you want to clear up the wizards first, right? They've got range, they can do magic damage. They're going to be really annoying, kind of poking you from range and making it so you can't really close the gap. But if they have somebody like their co-opper here, it's tough to do that, because once you get close to them, this guy's ready for like a close-up one-on-one fight. So another really essential thing to master early on with invasions is your knowledge of the level or the zone where you are. Like, I knew that there were these little skeleton warrior guys over here, so I pulled the host and their friend over to this area to get a little bit of a distraction and take the heat off of myself just a little bit. These guys are not super duper strong, but it can provide just enough of a distraction to help me sort of close that gap and make it a little bit more of a fair fight. Stormblade, again, coming in super clutch, and now the host is sort of on the run, right? He knows how much damage I can do. He knows that I've got a ranged option, even on a melee build. That's what Stormblade is really, really nice for. You can basically cast a magic spell and do damage at a distance, even though you're just rocking like a sword and board. So he switches over to his own sword because he figures, you know, maybe it'll be a little bit easier to close this thing out if we just go all melee, right? I'm not just hanging back and shooting spells off anymore. So right now, we are kind of in another interesting situation. Do the turn and burn with the O Flame, which is really helpful. A turn and burn is just you turn around and you hit somebody. And most of the time, that will get them to stop chasing you. Even if they've got a really scary build, just turn around and hit them, right? And most of the time, they'll run away. Host starts panic rolling, so again, we are going to try and roll catch them, which is harder than it looks, right? A lot of streamers will make it look pretty easy, but you just have to follow people and try and time it right. A lot of it depends on your latency, a lot of it depends on like the internet connection that you have and that they have. But if somebody's rolling like this, don't let up the pressure, right? Even if their host is like swinging at you, just keep going and keep trying to get them. Because you can probably, with that 1400 HP you have, tank a couple of hits and close out the fight. So that's the build, right? You can get this thing going in a couple of hours. It's super simple. It is going to give you a lot of room to grow, right? You can take this build kind of in any direction that you want because we've only really put stat points into vigor and then a tiny little bit into endurance and faith. You could make this a quality build. You could make it a strength build. You could make it an intelligence build if you wanted to, right? The sky's the limit. But this is going to give you just a really good baseline to help you learn invasions, to learn what sort of situations you're going to find yourself in, to practice a little bit. When you invade at a lower level, it just kind of gives you a little bit more breathing room, I've found. So level 40 to 60, is a good range to start out at. The last thing that I will say is that you really do need to bring the right mindset into invasions because you are going to die a lot. I still die a lot, and I've been doing invasions for like a year now. I have almost 100 videos on this channel about just me doing Elden Ring invasions, and there is still so much room for me to grow as an invader. If you're getting tilted, if you're getting just like super pissed, if you're not having fun, it's time to take a break, right? I want people to do more invasions. I want people to try out this mode of the game because it's unique. It's really fun. There's nothing else out there really like it. But be prepared to have it be a little bit of a steep learning curve at first. But hopefully with this build, it's going to make that curve not feel as steep, and it's going to help ease you into invasions. That's my hope with this video, with this build, is that you just feel like you have something that you can use to get yourself started. So if you liked the video, go ahead and subscribe. I put videos up here pretty much every week of me doing Elden Ring invasions, and I stream weekly as well. Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific time. We stream for a couple hours, do invasions, hang out. It's a lot of fun. So thank you for watching.